Hello everybody, Jesse here from JN Aquarium Supply. Today I want to talk to you all about what I do and what I try to do to lessen my environmental impact with my fish keeping hobby. On top of that, I like to also be very efficient in my aquarium fish keeping hobby. That saves me money and saves the environment at the same time. So I have a very new method of recycling a lot of my old algae and plants and plant waste that generally would go down the drain or into the garbage. So stay tuned. So what we're going to talk about today is worms, earthworms. I live in Canada. Earthworms are throughout North America. I'm sure they're in Europe, everywhere. If you have some temperate conditions in the springtime, the worms come out in full force at night. It is at this time that you can collect them in large quantities. I went out with my girlfriend and a couple of our sons, and we collected about 300 or 400 worms in one evening. Many of you are probably thinking, what the hell do you want to do with worms? Well, worms do a lot of things. Earthworms are a great food for your fish, an absolute great food for your fish. It's not something that should be fed as a constant diet or that's all that's in their diet, but it's a very good supplement to their diet and adds a lot of protein and nutrients to your fish's diet. So on top of being a fantastic food for your fish, you also get your very own composting station in your fish room. Earthworms will essentially eat anything that was once alive and is now dead. So this counts for many of your fruit and vegetable peelings and waste, and also a lot of your aquarium plant matter waste. Now I'm sure a lot of you are like me, and a lot of your duckweeds and whatnot end up going down the drain sometimes when you're doing tank maintenance. I don't know if they would actually survive the processing system of going through the septic system, the township septic system that is, and back out into the lake. I don't know if it would survive this, but I'm going to try to do my part to lessen my impact on the environment and to not allow plants and plant matter to escape my fish room and possibly be an invasive species. So now all my plant waste goes straight into my worm container. So let's have a look at how I'm keeping my earthworms in my fish room and how I'm doing my part to lessen my impact on the environment in my fish room. So the location I've chosen to keep my earthworms is right underneath my 72-gallon tank, down at the floor where it's nice and cool and nothing is going to disturb them. I have very simply used an old fish shipping styrofoam container and poked a few holes in the top of it so that they get some air. Worms still do need air, but they also require a very tight fitting lid or they will escape and you will find them all over your floor. So here are our worms. There are a lot of worms in here. And as you can see, there is quite a bit of debris, leaf matter, and dirt. The best way to start an earthworm colony is to start with peat moss, and they will quickly turn it all into worm castings, but it holds moisture very well as the worms do need to stay damp. As the box is in total darkness all the time, they come to the top to feed whenever they so choose. There are many worms in here, and it's very hard to actually know how many are in this box, but you just have to scratch the surface to see how many are actually in here. This box is full, and many of them are attempting to breed in here. We put much of our kitchen vegetable waste into this box. As you can see, some banana peels there, and some leaves from our house plants in the house. The worms very quickly compost this for us, and this dirt would be a fantastic addition to our gardens outside when they are done with it. This is my plant waste bucket. All this waste is from yesterday as I was cleaning tanks out, and this really should not go down the drain of your sink. By putting all this down your drain or even into your garbage, if your garbage ends up near a water source, you are just asking to introduce an invasive species. So a method I am trying so I can reduce my environmental impact with my hobby is using all this waste, all this vegetable waste here to feed my food that is going to feed my fish. I have not noticed any bad smells coming from this because I believe with the amount of worms I have in here, they take care of this organic matter very quickly. And by offering different types of organic matter, you are actually giving your worms different types of nutrients, which in turn get passed on to your fish when your fish consume them. Many people also sport fish for native species, and these worms are fantastic for that as well, and will save you a lot of money on going out and buying worms by the dozen. Probably the most important facts to know about raising earthworms or keeping earthworms. We're really not trying to breed them because they do have a very difficult breeding cycle and it is very time consuming. If you want to breed worms, I suggest going with red worms. But with our native earthworms, the biggest thing is to offer them a cool space, and this is why we are down near the ground on our basement floor. Very tight fitting lid, darkness, and a proper dampness. If you're putting peat moss into your worm bin, when you squeeze it with your hand, a little bit of water should dribble out, but it should not pour out, and that would be the exact dampness that you should require. So where am I going to get these worms? Well, if you have your own yard and you know it's pesticide free and herbicide free, that would be a great place to start. Any area that is a grassy area that you are sure is pesticide free and herbicide free is a great place to find these worms. Now, when are you going to find them? Obviously, they're not out during the day. As their nickname implies, they are night crawlers. At night, after dark, especially during a bit of rain, which is when we go out, we always wait for it to rain, or if it had just rained, to go out and collect. These worms will come out right on top of the grass, and you have to be very stealthy and pick them. A good flashlight is required, a good bucket for holding the worms you're collecting is required, and a steady, fast hand. Within an hour or two, one person should be able to collect 100 or 200 worms, maybe even more. So why not make it a family affair? Get everybody out. Kids love catching worms, especially at night because they get to stay up past their bedtime. It's a big event for them. I know our children love going out and collecting them. Late spring, early summer is the very best time to collect them around here as they are coming out to breed as well as eat. So many times you can get two at once. So in my concluding thoughts for this video is, I love keeping earthworms in my fish room. I love the fact that I am lessening my environmental impact by using these worms to eat a lot of plant species that could be deemed as invasive species in my area, as well as offering my fish some very beneficial food. I feel as hobbyists, it is our responsibility to do our very best to lessen our environmental impact. This hobby isn't always the best for the environment. I will be the first to just say that. Many people try not to say that because they don't want the world to know, but let's face it, our hobby does impact the environment. So, that doesn't mean we can't have our hobby, because there is many other things in the world that impact the environment, just our everyday life does. But it doesn't mean we can't make small changes in the way we do things to lessen our impact on the environment. There are many environmental impacts that we imply with our hobby. One of them being invasive species. Another one being collecting fish from the wild. I do my best to try to breed as many species in my fish room as possible so that they don't need to be collected from the wild. Electricity use is another huge one. I do everything I can to reduce the electricity use in my fish room. This includes using timers, shutting lights off when I don't need them. I run a single air pump to run most of my fish room, reducing the need for extra filters that all plug in instead of having just my one pump that plugs in and uses electricity to service about 20 tanks. I also use as much of the water from my fish tanks when doing water changes as I can to water household plants, and when the weather is working with us, I put most of my water out on my lawn or my outside garden so it can just go back into the environment like it's supposed to, and reducing my need to use municipal services to water my lawn and my garden. So I hope I've showed in a positive manner how we can help our environment a little bit while still enjoying our hobby. So from us to you, happy fish keeping. I hope you take some of our environmental impact tips and implement them in your own fish room. And from us to you, till next time, take care.